We met, once I came out of the military, I became a police dispatcher while going to school full-time. While dispatching, she was the lovely voice on the other end. And we will occasionally, her boys played baseball, where my boys played baseball at, so we would cross paths at the field. And at that point, you know, she asked me, did I ever thought about becoming a police officer? And I didn't know what I wanted to do because I was, you know, just fresh out of the military and still had time to consider what I wanted to do. And she said, you considered law enforcement? I was like, no. But then she said, well, you know, if you want to, you should do a ride along. So I did a ride along with her, and I was kind of hooked on law enforcement and her.
So how did you find out what was occurring on September 11th? What were you doing that day?
I was sleeping. That's how I found out about 9/11. I was sleeping after working an all-night shift. I talked to her up until she got on the plane, and then I went to sleep. The next voice I heard, I woke up to her phone call, and that's when she told me everything that was going on. She told me about the hijacking. You know, we had a chance to pray together at the time. She told me to tell the boys that I love them. And then she told me about their plans also, what they was trying to take back over the cockpit. And then I heard a loud boom. She told me that it started, she got to go, and then the phone disconnected. And then just through work and phone calls afterwards, talking to United, and one of her friends, that's when I found out that her flight actually crashed, and that's when I lost her.
But what is your hope for CeCe's legacy?
Well, you know, here at the Flight 93 National Memorial, it's her legacy is etched in stone, so to say, and she's memorialized here, and I love how it turned out. Great staff, volunteers. It's just a loving environment here. She's being cared for here. I mean, her memory's been kept alive here at the memorial. She's been memorialized. I mean, what more? I couldn't ask for more. And you know, I spoke with this gentleman yesterday, and I told him, and I just tell the world, you know, at all the places she had to be laid to rest, she's literally she came into the backyard of heaven here. This is a beautiful place to be, and I love it.
And what do you do today?
I was a police officer September 11th. Had the great honor of really serving, doing that public service work. And now I had to pick up the torch, and now I'm a flight attendant with United. She was a flight attendant 9 months to the day. She passed away December 11, 2000 to 9/11/2001. So once I was able to finish my career, I picked up hers, and I'm gonna go ahead and finish it for her.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Robert Franz. I'm a park guide here at Flight 93 National Memorial. So on behalf of the memorial, I'd like to welcome you here today to our speaker series. It's our second year. We have it monthly, so it's May, June, July, and August. See somebody afterwards if you want to find out our schedule. When United Airlines Flight 93 was hijacked, 13 passengers and crew members responded by placing phone calls to the authorities, to United Airlines, and to their family members and friends. According to the FBI, 37 phone calls were placed from on board Flight 93 from 9/28, when the plane was hijacked, until the time of the crash at 10:03. 35 of these calls were made on the airphones located on the back of the plane seats. Cell phone calls were used to make the other 2. Credit card records reveal the time of the call, the airphone caller's name, the number or numbers dialed, the duration of the call, and the row from which the call was placed. According to the 9/11 Commission report, the series of calls from the flight provided vital information both to the ground and to the passengers and crew. Calls from on board the plane revealed that the plane had been hijacked. The hijackers wielded knives. The hijackers had entered the cockpit. The hijackers wore red bandanas. The passengers were forced to the back of the aircraft. A passenger had been stabbed. 2 individuals were lying on the floor of the aircraft up in the first class section, either injured or dead, possibly the captain and the first officer. Through the phone calls that were made to family and friends, the passengers and crew learned that the World Trade Center towers were struck by 2 commercial airliners, and that the Pentagon was struck by a commercial airliner. Lorne Lyles, our guest speaker today, is a Flight 93 family member who received a phone call from the hijacked plane on September 11, 2001. Lorne's wife, CeCe, was a flight attendant on board Flight 93. In the flight's final minutes, with hijackers in control of the plane, CeCe called Lorne at their home in Florida to express her love and inform him that passengers were mounting a counterattack and breaking into the cockpit. Ladies and gentlemen, my extreme pleasure to welcome our guest speaker today, Lorne Lyles.
Good afternoon and welcome. Oh, you have your own mic today.
I know. I graduated. Okay, so today, can you hear me in the back? So today, this is the third for the weekend. We had 2 yesterday and 1 today. So again, welcome today. Glad that you could attend. Lorne, can you tell us a little bit about CeCe and her life before you met her?
Before I met her, well, I met her first when she was a cheerleader. And she was in the 12th grade, and I was just a little freshman looking at her, gazing on her. You know how you were in high school, you see that person in high school, but I was a freshman. Of course she didn't see me. I was a little bitty pencil, and she was this gorgeous woman. And then you fast forward, I was in the military. She became a police officer. I came home from the military. I was in college full time and dispatching at the police department. And but yeah, she was a loving mother, 2 boys, and just an awesome person. Prior to me capturing her heart.
So you mentioned that you were in the military. What did you do there in the military?
I was a telecommunications specialist, what you guys know now as a computer programmer. I used to actually program computers. We used to call them routing indicators. You guys call them email addresses now. Of course, you know, everything starts in the military and trickle its way down to the civilian sector. And I also was a paratrooper. I used to jump out of a perfectly good aircraft.
Do you have any other paratroopers in the audience today?
Airborne.
Okay, so we'll fast forward a bit, and CeCe was a dispatcher, CeCe was a police officer, and you were a dispatcher. But did you meet then, or when did you meet?
I used to go to the baseball fields because my boys, I was divorced, and I became a single parent of 2 boys, and I would go to the baseball field, and I would see her, and we just generally just speak in passing. You know, she didn't know me, I didn't know her. Our boys were on the same team, so we just would just generally speak. And then I was dispatching, and I guess I was dispatching her, and then she just said, you know, hey, have you thought about becoming a police officer? And I was like, no, not really, because I was in school, getting out of the military, didn't know what I wanted to do. So, and she said, no, come do a ride along. So I wasn't thinking about really the ride along. I was just thinking about meeting her, you know, just going, being with her. So sure. So I did a ride along with her, and I fell in love with it. Instantly fell in love with it. My city, where we're from, is Fort Pierce, Florida. And when I left and went in the military, it was an amazing, amazing city. When I came back, it was that's the crack cocaine epidemic took over. I mean, it was drug infested, crime riddled. So, you know, I thought, well, this is my opportunity to be able to do something about it. Being that when I was dispatching, I would hear the names. I'm like, I know them. Yeah, you want to find them? His mother lived here. Oh, So I was, he was hiding, and wait a minute, he's close to this house. So I used to know where we used to play and hide. Hey, I say, check up underneath this house right there. It's a, so they were finding people right where I would tell them. And I said, I really can do this now. So I just said, okay, I'm gonna do it. So I applied, went through, got accepted, went through the police academy, graduated. Lo and behold, I didn't know that it was a financial gain for her. It was a she recruited me because she got $1,500 on completion of my graduation. But that's okay. I got her though.
But when she recruited you, when did you start dating pretty quickly after that, or was there a time frame between that?
It was a time frame. She still was married, and probably about a year later, she was going through a divorce, and then that's when I kind of stepped in.
So that's why you probably didn't get part of that bonus then.
Right. The bonus was her though.
That's true. So when did CeCe decide to become a flight attendant?
We got married May 1st, 2000. We was only married a year and 4 months prior to her death. She was saying that she wanted to get out. She didn't want to do it any longer. She wanted to just be a mom, travel, and just enjoy life at that point. So I sent her on a trip to see her brother in Tennessee. And she came back and was like, man, those flight attendants, they look nice, they cute, they uniforms, that's something I always wanted to do. I'm like, well, apply. We went online. See, that's when the internet came into play. So she went online, and United had a call. They was hiring flight attendants in Tampa, so we went to Tampa, and they invited her to Chicago for the second interview, and she got it, and she started training on December 11th, 2000.
So going through or becoming a flight attendant requires a lot of studying, and so my understanding is you helped her study and you learned almost as much as she did about it.
Yeah, she had to, then you had to learn planes by sight, just looking at them, knowing which aircraft it was, whether it was a 747, 777, 767, Airbus, 737, any aircraft type that United flew. So we had to test on it, had to test her on seating configurations, how many seats on each aircraft, how many emergency doors, windows, where the emergency equipment is located at. So I'm sitting here testing her, and of course I'm learning it all myself. So, but I've always been fascinated with planes. I used to like traveling, so that was a bonus for me also to help her with that.
So with all her travel, how did you stay in contact? And I think that you have a particular thing you'd like to talk about on that.
Yeah, we talk on the minimum side about 15 times a day. We talk like verbal communication, no texting like everyone do today. We talked 15 times a day. Well, then again, you couldn't text back then because you remember those phones just had the 1, 2, 3, and you had to do A, B, C, D, and you had to keep pushing the numbers, and it took you about 10 minutes just to say I love you. So you're better off just quick calling and just saying. So yeah, but we really stayed in communication as far as just talking and just expressing our love throughout the day. Literally, we talked from the time we got up to the time we went to sleep, in and out the day. I was a police officer at the time, so in getting in and out of the car, doing whatever I had to do, if I missed a call, I called right back, and we just really stayed in contact. When you're not with your loved ones, coming home, seeing them every day, communication is definitely the key to that successful relationship. So you really must stay in contact with your loved one. So, but during that time, she had a layover in Atlanta, and I guess she had back-to-back trips, so she wasn't home. She probably was gone for about 5 days. Most she'll be gone is about 3 to 4, but this time she had back-to-back trips, so she couldn't come home. So she had this long layover in Atlanta. So I knew I was going to that layover. So she thought I was working that weekend, but I actually wasn't. So when I got out of work, I just talked to her just like I normally would, and just say, yeah, she thought I was in a patrol car, but I wasn't. I went and bought me a ticket on Delta, flew up to Atlanta. When I got to Atlanta, I was in the taxi cab. Yeah, I'm talking to her. So she hit her radio from the taxi cab, but she thinks it's my patrol radio. I'm like, yeah, I'm just talking to her. So I'll call you back. Got out, got to the hotel where she was at. Got out, went up to her room, called her. As I'm walking to her room, I'm like, baby, I miss you. I said, I would love to see you. She said, I miss you too. I would love to see you also, like that. I said, well, open the door. She said, what you mean? She said, stop playing. So I knocked on the door and she screamed like, ah, and so cover your children's ears up because we had a wonderful night that night. I can tell you that.
So how did you find out what was occurring on September 11th? What were you doing that day?
That day, I worked that night. She flew out on the 10th. I took her to the airport the morning of the 10th. I went to work that night, 10th, because I worked at it, till 7 that morning. It was like 11 to 7 or 9 to 7, something like that. So that morning of the 11th, I talked to her all the way up until the time she got on the plane. She says, I'm walking on the plane. I mean, even through security, she would put her phone down, let it go through security, pick it up, and literally walk right through. And we talked literally up until she got on the plane. She got a chance to talk to the youngest, Javon, as I was taking him to school, all the way up until she got on the plane. So, of course, working all night, I was tired, so I went to sleep. And in the sleep, when you're sleeping, I just kept hearing her phone ring, and I'm thinking it's in my dream, and but so I woke up, and I went and picked up the phone, and the caller ID said unavailable. I'm like, bill collector. Okay, let me put this back down. So I put the phone down, and I went back to sleep. And 11 minutes later, I received a phone call. It was her, and when I looked at the caller ID, it was her cell phone. So I'm like, oh, she must not have took off. So I said, hey, babe. She's like, babe, listen, my plane has been hijacked. I said, stop playing. She said, no, babe, I'm not playing. Listen. So when you talk to your loved ones and you know them, you know that their voice when it's serious. You know that when it's something real serious, that something is going on that you really pay attention. So at that point, she had my attention. So she told me that, they hijacked the plane, turned it around. They was in the cockpit. She told me that they was getting stuff together. They had somebody actually to fly the plane, and they was gonna try to breach the cockpit to get in. So I'm like, oh, wait a minute, let's pray. So at that point, we prayed, and after we finished praying, she said, tell my boys I love them, that I love them dearly. And then I heard a loud bang. That was them taking the carts and slamming into the door. So she said, babe, I gotta go. The next thing you know, we got disconnected. So at this point, when you get woke up out of a deep sleep, I mean, I was in a deep sleep. I looked at the phone, I'm like, caller ID, cell phone. It just didn't add up to me. I'm just like, was I dreaming? Because sometimes you know how your dreams can just seem real. I mean, when you're in that dream, it just seemed real. So I said, I gathered myself, I set up. I said, well, let me call United. So I called United. And I said, hey, what's that flight? I forgot the flight number and everything. I said, so what's the flight number that left from Newark? It was going to San Francisco, which was the destination that she loved. And I'm like, they said it was flight 93. It left a little bit late, but it's due to arrive on time, if not early. I said, ma'am, I don't mean to alarm you. I said, but I think my wife called me from that plane, and she said it was hijacked. That poor reservationist, she said, oh my God. Hold on. I'm like, hold on. And then, I heard a series of clicks. Then somebody came on and said, this Mr. Lyles? I'm like, yes. Now, I never told the girl my name. So, like I told everybody else, I still don't know to this day who I was actually talking to. I don't know whether it was corporate security or it was faxed to, they transferred me to corporate security all the way through to the FBI, or whether they got caller ID, but they knew who I was. They said, the wife is CeCe Lyles, yes. Well, they did confirm to me that the plane was hijacked, and they said that they have a team of 4 people that was coming to me from Miami. At the time, United had a base in Miami, and I was in Fort Myers at the time, which you can just take 75 all the way from Miami to me at that time. So they said they should be with you. They're on their way now. So, the next thing was, I by myself. I said, yes, I'm by myself. So they're like, okay, so yeah, they're going to be there to assist you with anything you need. We'll be in contact with you. So I'm like, okay, we have all your numbers. So I hung up with them, and I'm like, okay, what do? I have to go to work tonight. If anybody recall, how many of you heard of terrorism prior to 9/11? You got one person. So terrorism, as far as what we knew here in the U.S., it was wasn't our issue. It was a Middle East issue. It was, things that happened in Africa. It just happened in those other countries. It didn't happen to us because we kind of protected here. Here in the U.S., our borders don't connect with any of those countries that breed terrorism. So I didn't know anything about terrorism. So, okay. So at that time, I gathered myself. I just really gathered myself. I called in sick from work. So I called my job and I said, okay, let me just call in sick. So I called and said, hey, guys, I'm not coming in tonight. They're like, oh, I'm sorry if you sick. I said, no. I said, my wife was on a plane that's been hijacked. Well, they knew that she was on, they knew my wife was a flight attendant. So they said, are you watching TV? Now, when I went to sleep, my TV was on SportsCenter. Everybody know back then SportsCenter just was a recording from the first one went live and they recorded everything else and it was a rerun over and over on a loop. It just played. Nothing was different, no breaking news, no nothing. So when I woke up, my TV still was on SportsCenter. And I said, no, I'm watching SportsCenter. They was like, oh, okay. They said, hey, you want to talk to Becky? Becky Shell was our victim advocate at the police department. I said, sure, I talked to her. So I don't know the conversation they must have had, but I can only imagine when they went to transfer me, they probably got a hold of her first and said, hey, he don't know nothing. He don't know what's going on. So when they transferred me, Becky said, hey, you want me to come sit with you? I said, would you please? She says, okay, I'll be there. I stayed about 20, 25 minutes from the police department. 7, 8 minutes later, I hear sirens. And I'm looking out my window, and I see an unmarked car pull in front of my door. And and I look down, I see Becky. I'm like, man, they got here quick. Terrorism, only thing I was thinking of as what always been shown to us here in the U.S. that they take planes, places, make demands, and then they'll kill somebody, toss them off till they get what they want. And they eventually get caught because they never get what they want. So that was my definition of terrorism. Law enforcement, we was never ever trained for no type of terrorism. Wasn't prepared. When we here in the U.S., we wasn't prepared. That was boots on the ground training that day for local law enforcement. Even the FBI, because they really never really had to deal with terrorism on that scale. So when they came in, they informed me about it was a terrorist act. They told me about the World Trade Centers. They told me about the Pentagon. There, I turned on the TV. They said, okay, turn on the TV. So I turned to CNN. And at that time, it said 4 planes was crashed. They had the flight numbers for 3 of them. They didn't have the flight number for the 4th one. And then, for some reason, they said it's one that went off radar. So I'm like, well, I just talked to them not too long ago, so it must be the one that went off radar. That's the one they're going to take places to make demands. So while I'm talking to them, I get a phone call. The phone call was from one of CeCe friends who was Chicago-based. So she called me and said, is CeCe home? I'm like, no, she's on flight 93. I didn't know the plane had crashed at the time. I'm still thinking that's the one that went off radar. And, so she was saying that, I tried to look and see where she was at, and her file was protected. I couldn't see anything. So United blocked everybody from seeing it. Flight attendants can normally put the employee number in of the other person, and you can tell where everybody is at. Your friends, you can look them up. Oh, we're going to be on a layover together, things of that nature. She couldn't get through, and I could just hear it in her voice that something was wrong. And I'm like, hey, what's wrong? And she got quiet. I'm like, tell me. So she the one that actually told me that she was on flight 93. That's the one that was in Pennsylvania, and that there was no survivors. And then only thing I remember at that time was waking up, because I did pass out. And when I woke up, I was kind of like looking, and I seen my lieutenant. He had my gun belt, and he was walking out. They secured my gun belt. Of course, they make sure that I'm not trying to do nothing to harm myself. So they took my gun belt, immediately placed on administrative leave. And that's how I found out I lost my wife today.
So think about that. Think about how you found out what was occurring that day. And think how it's, in your memory. They call it a flashbulb moment because of the event of that day. And then just think about the past 5 minutes in what you just heard. And this is the 3rd time that I've heard Lorne tell this story. And I each time I come away with amazement, respect. One, that he's able to do it. I don't think I could. But part of the thing, we had a phone conversation before, and I think part of the reason why is you here. You're the visitors here. And you're not coming here for the vistas or for the views. You're coming to pay your respects to the crew member and passengers of Flight 93. And it was at the speaker series last year where the family members spoke. I was amazed of how they could recount what occurred that day to them. And so when I talk to them and I tell them how many visitors come each year, they're amazed at the number. They don't take it for granted. And so, you know, as a small measure of thank you for coming here to this site and for coming here today, I believe that's part of why Lorne is here today, to share something which is obviously, you know, very near and dear to him. So I just want to thank Lorne for being here this weekend and for answering the question, the hard question that I had to ask him.
And it really wasn't hard because you honor your loved ones the best way you can, and to keep a memory alive, as well as people here in Somerset, Shanksville, and all the surrounding cities. They embrace this whole thing. They open their hearts to us. They open their land to us, and it's been amazing. What you guys see, yesterday was my first time back here since 2011. It's been hard for me to come up because this is a sacred place to me, and although that you guys see the wonderful things they did out there, when you see the names along that wall, that rock out there is actually that rock that sit out there that they keep you guys from, that's actually the impact area. Truly, our loved ones are still there, you know, so it's a sacred ground for me, you know, and it was hard coming up all the other times, because whenever I would leave here, it took me some days and weeks to actually mentally recover. So the good Lord has truly blessed me, blessed my family, blessed our children, and I'm able to now to be able to enjoy it, just be able to come up and actually enjoy it, and to see the scenery, to see the beauty, and to truly just honor the crew and the family members that lost their life that day. And you know, for me to just give thanks to these volunteers and these park rangers that actually just done an amazing job, and they've done an amazing job with our families, and I couldn't thank you guys enough for what you guys have done for me and my family and other victims that are buried here.
Well, no surprise if I say and speak for the volunteers and the park rangers and guides, it's an honor to be here. And obviously, I don't think anyone here is surprised by that statement. Can you tell me a little bit about how you did get through the event, people that might have helped you?
Even though this is Father's Day, I love my dad, but it's nothing like a mother. My mom, she really, mother's always comforting and very protective, but my mom went above and beyond. And it helped that she's a therapist also. So she was being able to guide me. She was actually a teacher at the time. She had retired from the Social Security office, and she was a teacher, and then she was going back to school. She was actually in school doing her master's and doctorates at the time for psychology. So, but you know, she was able to be there for me. She always gave me good guidance and wisdom. And if anybody out there was Christian to know the Lord, you're going to have to just really lean on Him and give it to Him. A guy yesterday who attended the second session, I went down to the wall and he said, you know, you actually put a face on it for me yesterday. I said, well, that was my intent, to put a face on it for you. He says, let me ask you a question. He said, did you get angry? And he thought that I was going to take a moment to think about it. I'm like, no, I didn't get angry. I didn't have time to get angry. I had 4 boys looking at me to see how I respond to them. And you have to, your kid's going to respond how you respond. So I had to show strength. I had to show that Christ is still in charge, regardless of the evil that was plotted and took place that day. And I made sure that those boys seen a strong man, and to know how to be strong men as they now adults, the youngest being 23, the oldest being 32. to be able to function as men, and even in the faces of the crisis that we was in a critical crisis state at the time. So that's what carried me through, the love of my family, the love of Christ, and I'm here today to be able to share it with you.
Thank you. Now, you were a blended family, and I would like to wish you Happy Father's Day.
Thank you.
CeCe had 2 sons, and you had 2 sons.
Yes, but let me make the correction, because I keep saying, I actually have 3 kids. So I have a son that's the same age as Javon. He's 23 also, but he wasn't in my house at the time. He's a separate mother from my wife. I had a 3rd son once I got divorced, and so I do have a 23. So I'm a father of 5. So I have 5 boys, and it's ironically we talked about the 4 that was in the house. Names all begin with a J. Her 2 boys are Jerome and Javon. My 3 boys are Justin, Jordan, and Jarrell. So it's actually 5 J's. So it was just something that was meant to be. So we have 5 J's in the house.
At 9:58, and the aircraft's going to impact at 10:03, but at 9:58 was when you received one of the 2 cell phone calls that were made that day by crew member and passengers. But there was another phone call that day that you received, but you just didn't find out about that until some days later.
Yeah, about a week later, I was, the very next day after, let's say September 12th, I drove to Fort Pierce, where we're from, to start preparing for a memorial. And I just had to get away. Of course, my home was a media frenzy, so I had to go where nobody would find me. So I went to my mother's house. And plus, I went to the city of Fort Pierce. That's where I started at, Fort Pierce Police Department, and which is in St. Lucie County. So they did have deputies and stuff. I provided security. But I had to come back to get Jerome and Javon's stuff because they was going to their dad. So me and their dad was close then. We're close today. He used to pick the boys up every weekend, every other weekend, and even sometimes he would even take my 2 boys also. So that's how close we are. And so I was coming back to get their clothes because they was going to stay with him. And I was clearing out my voicemail messages when I ran across CeCe's message, and that's when she told me that it was 3 hijackers. She said they turned the plane around. They heard about the World Trade Center. They heard about the Pentagon. And a testament of your love for somebody is when you can feel the love of your loved one through just conversation. Her message in that voice recording that you guys can hear over in the center, she said, babe, I'm sorry. She apologizing to me for being in the situation she's in. She didn't have to apologize to me, but that lets me know that I did right by her, that our love was just that strong when she felt that she's in a situation that compromised us not being able to see each other. So she apologized, and she said that, and she said she hoped to see my smiling face again. At that time, I dropped the phone, and my mom was like, what's the matter? And I'm pointing at the phone. And so she picked it up, and she went back and she heard some of it. She was like, she couldn't handle it either. So being a police officer at the time, I had a phone number to one of the investigators that was over at Flight 93. That wasn't over it, but I guess he was my point person. Anything I find out, any additional stuff I may have or come across, if I recall anything, give them a call. So I called them, and at that time, I three-wayed the voicemail in, and I played it for them. And that's the recording that you guys hear, because they recorded it for me. That was part of the investigation.
So you visited the site on the 1-year anniversary and on the 10-year anniversary, and then hadn't been back since. So at the 10-year anniversary was when the Memorial Plaza was dedicated and the Wall of Names, so you had a chance to see that. Then yesterday, you were able to see the Visitor Center and this complex. Now there is one more piece to the memorial, and that's the Tower of Voices. Dedication will occur September 9th of this year, and I don't think you've had a chance to get up close to it. So what are your thoughts about the 3 different sections of the memorial? And I hate to ask, but is there one that you might be partial to?
I'm partial to the wall. It's closest to where my wife is buried. So, but they all are wonderful. And I just, in my head, I try to just picture how these architects came up with the idea, and everybody's good at their craft, but this is an amazing location. And just like I was telling a guy yesterday, you had the World Trade Center, you got loved ones that's mixed in the rubble and just the Pentagon, and just, if anything like this happened, that crash site is literally, this area is so beautiful. I told the guy yesterday, this is literally in the backyard of heaven. So it couldn't have been in a better place for my loved one to rest. This is literally in the backyard of heaven. It's an awesome place.
Well said. What is your hope for CeCe's legacy?
It's etched in stone down there, and they did an amazing job here, keeping our loved ones' memories alive, telling the story, the guides, the park rangers guiding you, and just everybody, just the visitors, the visitors that come, you guys get to hear the story, the volunteers get to tell you the stories. That's the perfect way. I mean, this being a national park is a great honor. It is a great honor, and it's wonderful to me, and I just appreciate everything that has happened and that continue to happen. And I will be here for that dedication.
Excellent, thank you. One of the family members said last year that it took her a long time to understand and come to the realization that she was turning the life of her loved one over to the Park Service. And so we do take that responsibility very seriously. But thank you. So you were a police officer on September 11th, and many years have passed, so you must be, what, a police captain now, a chief of police?
No, I was able to actually turn that badge in. I got to a certain amount of years when I can just go ahead and pull my pension. And some things that we do as part of healing, some things you still have to, you feel in your heart that you still have to do something as part of your healing. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to say that I am a United flight attendant this day. My wife was a flight attendant for 9 months from the day that she got hired to the day of her death. And I felt part of what I needed to do was to pick up that torch and finish what she started. So I'm now flying the friendly skies of United.
Last time I opened it up for questions to the audience. Now, I haven't approached them on this. They say be careful of asking a question you don't know the answer to. But we've talked about a lot of different things. Yesterday's, at the 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock, and here again at 2. But is there something that you would like to say, possibly, that we haven't covered? And I didn't give a chance to think about it. And that's one of the questions you got to be careful about asking.
That I didn't. Well, I'm going to give you some traveling advice. Please leave your flight attendants alone. They're there for your safety. If it's bumpy and it's not that serious to serve you a Coke and get hurt. So if the internet not working, it's okay. It's 35,000 feet in the air, flying at 500 miles per hour. Plus, sometimes it just ain't gonna work. Everything by satellite. You still got weather around. Don't think you above the clouds, because there are clouds still above that plane at 35,000 feet. So just please give your flight attendants a break, because United knew that they hired a police officer. So I'm not passive. So I kind of give it back. So don't tell United this, please edit that part out. But no, I do have fun with it now, so it's now I'm able to literally enjoy my life now. So I'm at that point, you get to certain parts in your life when you work. This don't feel like work. If I would have known that this was this easy and this fun, I would have ditched the badge a long time ago, and I really would have begun my healing a little bit quicker.
So back in 2001, the president of AOPA, the Airline Pilots Association, told the 9/11 Commission if a terrorist had come to the door and said that they had the flight attendant outside that door, that the captain or the first officer, they would have opened it. They would have opened it that day, and because at those days, you got to think what had occurred that day had never happened before. But today things are different. Now they're not going to open that door. And so I try to think about that as well, that don't give them a hard time, because they're still being a flight attendant knowing full well that the dangers are still out there. And so you mentioned something about as a police officer, as a flight attendant, and I believe being a police officer helped you to recall a lot of the details that occurred that day.
Yeah, of course, you're in law enforcement. When we write reports, everything is detailed based off of memory. You have to really memorize what you're writing. I mean, not unless you decide you're going to be unethical and make things up, but you're really supposed to be detail oriented, and you're supposed to tell the story. And so you need to be able to remember. So any training that you do and anything you do in life, you remember certain things. You remember your wedding day. You remember those events in your life that's important to you. Well, this was an important day for me, in a negative sense, but yet and still, I can't shut it off. It's who I am. So I was able to recall everything, and it actually helps me in the job today. Because I can be able to look at certain behaviors and certain people and certain, I can just say behaviors. So I can, and I see people when they get on the plane. I'm watching. But it's four of us, and it's the minimum of you got 120 to 350 passengers, and it goes from maybe 3 to 12 flight attendants, and we have to scan. So we're literally scanning. You don't know that person sitting next to you. Everybody's so disconnected nowadays with their head down in a device, in some sort of electronic device, and we forgetting that it's still not over. You don't know the person sitting next to you. So I always say, when I make announcements, this is the perfect time to get to know your neighbors. Say hi. You may just deter somebody at that point from doing whatever they think they was doing, what was in their head. So whether it's a terrorist act or whether somebody was just suicidal or just crazy anyway. So it helps me today, and it helps me to be able to help you get to your destination also.
I think next time I fly, hopefully, I wish that Lorne would be a flight attendant on board. So I'd like to go ahead and thank Lorne today for being our guest speaker. We'll go ahead and stop the series here today, give you an opportunity to come up and maybe introduce yourself as well. But thank you, everybody, for visiting today. Thank you.
Thank you, and happy Father's Day.